welcome to this amazing new facility. I feel like we are breaking it in as it's not fully out there in the public, so you should feel privileged. This is an insider job. Thank you for showing up. You already know about me. I'm an author, I'm a speaker, and I'm a ginger. Now, before we really get into the meat and potatoes, because I know you have some mac and cheese and some shredded beef, we're going to do some claptivities. Now, claptivities is exactly what it sounds like, and it is something that I completely made up. It's an activity around clapping to get you warmed up. So the first one is simple. We're just going to ease into it. This is the golf clap. So let's try this out a little. Let me hear a golf clap. Yeah, that's good. Okay. Okay, quiet down here. Let's hear a golf clap on this side. Okay, good. How about over here? Okay, and how about here? Good, thanks for coming out. Great. Have you ever heard of a thunderclap? Now, this type of clapping solves the problem of clapper envy. You ever sat next to somebody, you're like, dude, why are you clapping so much? Okay, fine. Okay, I just got to clap. This is a united front. This is one clap altogether. It's called a thunderclap. Now, it takes a little bit of savviness, a little bit of ingenuity, a little bit of hand-eye coordination. So I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, then you're all going to thunderclap. I have faith that you will get it the first time, but in reality, I know that you won't. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay. Weaker corners over here, but we saw the golf clap as well, so that's fine. Let's try it again. 1, 2, 3. Excellent. Let's try a double thunderclap. Ready? 1, 2, 3. I saw you. I know. All right, we're going to go crazy with the final one, which is the triple thunderclap. This is rarely ever seen, so be careful. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Now, I'm going to talk today about not being perfect, so I really love your imperfection there. You really were on point. Now, you can't really get it wrong clapping unless you don't clap. And that's why I need your participation in what's called the rap clap. Has anybody ever heard of a rap clap? Good, because I made this one up too. Now, we all know what raps are, and there's certain beats. So let's try a rap beat, something that's like boom, boom, and you clap on the boom. So something like boom, 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 boom. Okay, stop. Now what if we wanted a little bit faster rap? Boom, 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 boom. All right. Let's get one more towards the first one going and channel your inner gangster rapper. And I want you to get your hands ready for boom, boom, together, right? There. More. Okay. Okay, good. Keep it strong. If you've got an idea, I am so glad that you're here. Because if you want to change the world, I'd love to hear. It could be big, or it could be small, or it could be for profit, or not at all. But when I decide to Google you, does your personal brand shine through? Do you tweet so fast that you're blue in the face? Is your big idea all over the place? Do you post the same thing every time? Do you bore your followers out of their mind? You might even do it, and you might not even know it. Your startup hasn't started. All you want to do is grow it. You know you have a brand, but you don't know how to show it. You wish there was a method or a way you could control it. Well, have no fear, because I am here, and I will make it crystal clear. First you share it, then you share it, and I lost you there. Let me do the last line. First you own your story, then you share it. When you ditch the act, that's when people start to care. Now, I'm warming up to my friends over here who can't clap. Sometimes the rap doesn't come out correctly, but at least we've got our energy going, and hopefully you learned something. Now, the first part that I want to share with you is my story. Right? This whole idea of, like, what is your story? So we're going to go through the evolution of Ryan Foland. There I am as a small ginger kid. Now, my parents were principals, and that was great because every summer we got to disappear to Catalina Island. Now, what wasn't great was coming back to the school year with bleach blonde hair, more freckles than anyone, and lack of connection with all of my childhood friends for an entire 3 months. Months where they're having fun. Now, I'm having fun chasing lobsters and shooting fish and all the good stuff that I do with my dad. But when I came back, it was very easy to make me an outcast. And everyone has their own challenges when they're in elementary school. And I want to highlight one story that still kind of sticks me in the side. It's when you want to play basketball, but they don't pick you for the team. And even if they're shorthanded, they won't pick you. They'll just play half court. So I was down and out about this, and I'm not very good at sharing my feelings, so I was not wanting to share this with my mom. But you know moms. You know your moms. You know something's wrong. She's like, Ryan, what's wrong? I don't want to talk about it. This is classic me. She got out of me the fact that I was not picked for the team consistently. And these are the cool kids. So what does mom do? We're going to Sports Chalet. We're going to get you your own ball. That's what a mom thinks. Makes sense. I chose a Michael Jordan Special Edition white basketball. Now, I tried to practice a dribble in my house to annoy my family to no end. And I brought it to school when I felt I was comfortable, only to realize it didn't fit in my backpack. So I'm walking around with a white ball, trying to be cool, which just doesn't work. So I go to the players and the team. I'm like, hey, I've got a ball. And they're like, we do too. No, thank you. That was the first time I realized that having a ball doesn't get you in the game. But what I did do is I had some Hispanic friends who turned that ball into a soccer ball, and I learned to play some soccer. Now, as a kid, you can only take so much until your dad finds you crying in your room listening to a certain song that makes you feel happy. Don't worry, be happy. On repeat. And if you've ever been there, it's a very special song to make you feel good. Now, the particular situation about this time was that I had locked my door. And locking your door in my house was illegal. And he actually broke the door down because he thought something was terribly wrong. And there I was, curled up in a ball, listening to Don't Worry, Be Happy. That is a moment he looked at me and he said, you are starting karate right now. Let's go. Now, karate and martial arts was amazing because it was the first time that I actually got to understand how to communicate without communicating. I was a target, no longer. Now, I didn't go beat everybody up, but I was able to understand where the threats were. I was able to use my physical body to communicate, I'm not a target anymore. Also, I got into this toughness, and so I decided to play hockey. I was a goaltender, a glutton for punishment. Is there any other goaltender in here? See what I'm saying? Nobody wants to be hit with the pucks and have all the responsibility fall on your shoulders. When you let that goal in, that is when you lose. Now, my mom always told me that she hated it that I lost. And I'm like, I know, me too. And she said, no, that's because you wouldn't talk to me for like 3 days. I took a lot of this internally, and I sort of, all of it built up and welled up like most of it does. And then you go to high school. Now, I got a little bit reckless and loose in high school, but I was also very studious. So I had my nerd friends, and I had my skater friends. Now, some of those friends wore baggy pants. I wanted baggy pants. But another rule in the house, Mom will not buy you shorts if you have to wear a belt. Take that for the moms of these days. Now, in high school, I really started to get into my mojo like junior, senior year. And I had my confidence. I felt like the same kids that were bullying me I was now close with. We had gotten over it. And somebody came up with a bright idea to make me run for class president. And I thought to myself, okay, but I don't want to do anything to do it. So they got all the signatures, they filled everything out, and when the reality hit me that I was actually in the running for president, that's when my goaltender kicked in, and I was just like, there's no way I'm going to lose. And so that set off a series of probably the stupidest decisions that I made as a president ever. I started the first and only Battle of the Sexes week. That didn't go over so well when there was definitely conflicts through the ladies and the gentlemen, big rallies and everything. I also had trashed cars shipped to the school. I got a sledgehammer, and I charged per hit. I mean, what high school kid doesn't want to hit a car with a sledgehammer? We raised all kinds of money. Somebody got hurt, and it never happened again. Now, in high school, I did well enough to have an opportunity to go wherever I wanted for college. And I was excited to go someplace that was by the beach, that I could continue this Southern California lifestyle, but up north. So I went to UCSB. Any gauchos in here? Yeah, go gauchos. Get a tortilla flying. Now, I was an undeclared major. Any other undeclared majors out there that you actually went in not knowing what you're supposed to do? It's a terrifying thing, especially when it's orientation and your mom is trying to help you choose the classes and you won't decide because all you can think about is you're not sure what you want to do. So she helped sign me up for my first set of classes, and one of them happened to be dramatic arts. I'd never been in a theater before. I'd never seen a play. And as a result of trying to hit on a girl who was sitting in the class, I ended up at an audition, didn't know what an audition was. They called my name. I thought it was her. It wasn't. They sat me in a chair. I was horrified. I read what they gave me. They all laughed. I ran out of there, and I remember crying on my skateboard on the way home. This was like the worst first day of college ever. And long story short, that audition they actually brought me in for, and I acted, and I acted, and I directed, produced, and I found out that what I was meant to be was a Hollywood producer. It's exactly what I was meant to be. But the problem is that when I went into the real world, they're like, show me all of your footage, show me all of your stuff, and this is before cell phones were everywhere. So I had no documentation of what I'd done. I applied to over 16 different programs having to do with film and media. All of them said, thanks, but no thanks. So that's when I got involved in internships. Internships, in other words, bleed you of every single dime that you have as they sell false promises of the Hollywood dreams that they promise will be there in 30 years as you put in your time. Well, I was on the set of The Practice, and one day William Shatner shows up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's William Shatner. Now, he was somewhat quiet, but I had the responsibility of bringing him on set to a particular place. But I had no idea where this place was. So I pretended like I did. And I took William, and I tried to have idle chats. And when I showed up at the wrong set, I've never felt so mad dogged in my life. He didn't say one word to me. It was the most awkward silence in the elevator, and he was pissed. And that's when I realized, if I become rich and famous, I do not want to be like William Shatner, because he was a dick. Just saying. Now, what happened was that I bled every single piece of currency that I had, driving up and back to LA, and I called around to my friends, and I had a friend who's making all kinds of money in mortgage. So I was like, I'm there. You don't need experience? You want to train me what to do? Sure, I'll get on the phone. I thought I was going to crush it. And they give you one lead per week, and if you don't close that lead, you don't get another lead. And so there's so much pressure on creating traction to get traction. These people are crushing it. They're getting all these leads because they're closing deals. There's a processor that you have to turn your file into. And that processor has about 1,400 files. And the slower you are, the slower that your sale goes, and you lose the sale. So what I started to do was called snack time. Every Friday, I brought in a bunch of snacks, and I only invited the processors. And I asked them, what do you like? What are you all about? Some like dinosaurs, some like butterflies, some like cupcakes. So I started to draw stick figures on all of my submissions. I walk by, be like, hey, I got a submission for you. Throw it up on top, grab it up on top, take it, stick it on their wall, process my loan. The stick figures on my files gave me priority. I went from low man on the totem pole to President's Club to Chairman's Club, and I'll never forget getting the first $16,000 check, coming from a very broken-hearted Hollywood dream industry. Now, what did my mom say? She said, save it. What did I do? I spent it. Now, I got cocky, and I thought, hey, this whole mortgage thing, I can go get a broker's license. So I went and got a broker's license. And then I went to Costa Rica for a month. And then I came back, and they had all my stuff in a box. I'm like, this is a sign. I'm going to go start my own thing. I started my own thing. I funded my first loan. It was 2008, and everything crashed. By this time, I had a house. I had a Rimini Red Range Rover with 22-inch Rimini Red rims. Her name was Rachel. I had an SL500. Her name was Sally, SL. I also had an old truck, and at one point, I had a 1982 Targa Porsche. Now, when the income stops, you have to find another way to make it happen. I happened to be getting my MBA at the time and found I could continue to take out student loans, which still plague me today. So here I am living a life with no job and no mortgage working at all. So what do? I end up working construction. I end up selling bathrooms. And you know how? I was in a bathroom shop trying to find a cool sink, one of those cool sinks. And somebody came in and they had asked me a question. And I sort of helped them out. And the owner was like, you did a really good job with that. Are you broke? I'm like, yes. So he said, why don't you set up camp in here, and whatever you sell, I'll give you a percentage of it. So what did I start to do? I said, give me your vision of your bathroom. And I went, stick figure in the shower, like that, right? Does that work? Oh my gosh, you've brought my vision to life. So I got really good at selling bathrooms, and I really hated it. Now, that's the perfect combination of being vulnerable for somebody else to take advantage of you. And that's exactly what happened. because as I was in the bathroom hot mopping and ordering things and framing things wrong, I'm a technical guy, I'm not as much of a saw and hammer guy, but I swung it. I had an opportunity for this new crazy business that was going to help people out of debt. That made sense. It almost sounded too good to be true, and it was. And after handling and selling the management of $16 million in debt, I found myself in a very particular situation because I was doing regular maintenance, looking in the back end of the website because something was broken, and an email caught my eye about a house in Texas. My whole world was like, what? I found out that my business partner was building a multi-million-dollar house in Texas under my nose. And I was blinded by what's called a Chinese wall. Go, 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 sell, sell, sell. Let's do this, let's do this. It was the most terrifying, humbling experience of my life. I went to an attorney. I reported him to the FTC. You know what they said? Small potatoes. Not a big deal. I'm like, all right, at least I tried. Called my friends. They met me at this place in the middle of the night. 3-4 cars, took all my stuff, left in the middle of the night. I had to walk away from that one. But then came UCI, the savior. After probably 100 few applications and a lot of miserable interviews, I landed myself at the Entrepreneur Center. The Entrepreneur Center is where anteaters become entrepreneurs. It was the most amazing thing. It was a brand new place. They're like, we need somebody to run this. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've failed more than most people. I look like I'm a student. I can relate to them. This will be great. I'll be high energy, and I'll get them to fail, and I'll be there for them. I sold the hell out of that interview. I got it, and I was like, this is amazing. I found my swing zone. And then some guy walked in, looking a little bit off, had glasses. That's not what's weird. Had sort of not as much hair as a regular student. That's fine. We have a lot of faculty like that. But there was something in his walk, and he was holding a piece of paper. And I knew something was wrong. And I got served. I got dragged into an FTC lawsuit from my business partner from like 5 years prior. And my world again was now crushed. I did not think that this skeleton would come up again. And now it is front and center. And here I am working at the Entrepreneur Center, and I'm in an active investigation of an FTC dealing with $16 million. That was not fun. And what did I try to do? I tried to hide it. Well, we all know if you hide something for long enough, it percolates to the top. At that moment, I thought, it's over. UCI is done. I'm on to the next. And I knew that speaking was always a passion of mine. So I said, you know what? Why don't I just be a speaker? Nobody can fire me if I work for myself. And that was a moment that I started to get serious about it. But guess what? UCI did find out about it. And I had a talk not only with my boss, but with my boss's boss. And I was like, look, here's exactly what happened. You know why I'm qualified for this job? Is because I have seen the darkest side of when things go wrong. And I'm still here. By sharing that I was ready to change everything of which I had done, and that I was ready to take students under my wing, and I was ready to show them what not to do, I sold myself back into the job. But I had not forgotten about my passion for speaking. So if you look at this, this is the evolution of Ryan. It's not a direct line. It's lots of ups and downs. And in your life, you might now be like, yeah, this is exactly what I am. But if we look back into the past, there's probably skeletons in your closet that you're afraid to share. Things that you think people will judge you. But I'm here to tell you that when you bring those skeletons out and you show them, that's what actually creates real connection. That's when you know people are real, and that's when you can actually trust them. Now, what I'm going to share with you today is the logic behind sharing what you don't want to share. And my goal is to convince you that it is the reason that people will actually care. But the story's not done, because as soon as I said I'm going to be a speaker and I sold myself back into the job, I tried to pretend that none of that happened. Why? Because speakers are successful. Speakers wear suits. Speakers travel the world. Speakers aren't involved in lawsuits. Speakers didn't play hockey. Speakers weren't bullied. And I thought to myself, you know what? I have this new identity. I am now this. But the problem is that I had erased my entire past. and I wasn't able to connect with people. I wrote blogs, and I tried to get people to have me speak. And what do they say? We're not interested. You have no story. So the things that you are hiding is probably the exact thing that is your value that you bring. And I was just trying to get people to like me. We live in a digital world where it's like. We want more likes. We want more followers. We want you to like us. But that's not what it's all about. Because at the end of the day, people can like you but still not trust you. And very serendipitously, I was invited to an exclusive entrepreneurial party at Keith Ferrazzi's house. He wrote a book called Never Eat Alone and Who's Got Your Back, two of the best-selling networking books in the history of the world. I was a big fan of this guy. So I show up at his house in the Hollywood Hills, and there is a guy dressed in a cloud suit playing an oboe. 70 people from around the world that are super high class, and I was like, I had my bow tie, I'm ready to go. Keith Ferrazzi brought us all into his main room. There's like 7 different terraces, and he said, everybody put your phone away. Put your phone away right now, no video, no cameras. And he proceeded to share some very vulnerable stuff that he was dealing with in a relationship and some challenges that he had with his 14-year-old son. And everybody was like, did he just share that with us? The whole mood changed. And he said, do you see how you feel right now? Everybody's like, it's kind of awkward. He's like, this is not going to be your normal networking party. You're going to be assigned a table on the bottom of your plate, and when you talk with people, you're not allowed to tell them the things that are going right. You have to start off with what's going wrong personally and professionally, because that's the only way you're going to find out how you can help each other. You already are successful, you're here, but I don't care about that. So we went to the different tables. Mine had a fire pit, it was overlooking the Hollywood Hills. I went first, I was the only person that stood up, thank you Toastmasters, and I explained, I want to be a speaker, but no one will hire me, nobody cares. I write blogs, nobody reads them. I try to get gigs, it's total silence. Thank you. This guy stands up. No, he didn't stand up. He's just like, yeah, I got 10 million reads on my content, but my girlfriend just broke up with me, and I got an invite to a TEDx, but I don't want to speak. And I went right up to him afterwards. I said, hi, my name's Ryan. I can help you if you can help me. And that was Leonard Kim, the co-author of the book, and that's what started our relationship, based on what was going wrong. I told him I could help him to pick up on girls and get his charisma together. And I said, just teach me how to get a couple million reads on my content. And so what he did is he asked me to write down everything that I was doing. And I wrote it down. And he said, okay, it's going to be $1,700. What? Yeah. Scratched a check, headed over. At that moment, he was like, what? Okay, now this just got real. I think he said that, and I learned later he said that just because he didn't want to work with me. But I called his bluff. So he took this list of everything, and he came back a week later, and he said, okay, I've got some news for you. You're doing everything correct, but in the wrong order, and you're missing one major thing. Think about that. You can go look at what to do to build a brand. There's all kinds of information. I was doing all the right stuff, but in the wrong order. And the one thing that I was missing, I was not letting people know who I was. And if you look at Keith Ferrazzi's party, I just met the guy, and he spilled his guts to me, and I was like, I feel you. I'm there with you. I know you. And so that's when this whole idea of building an imperfect brand to create more connection than prestige came about. Now, we started a company together. We had Fortune 500 company executives. We had really successful entrepreneurs running 6- and 8-figure businesses. And you know how we started the conversation? We will help you, but it's going to be very difficult because you are not going to want to share your underbelly. And that's all it will do to work with you. We're going to write content that exposes things that you don't want to share. We're going to create a bio that talks about all the good, all the bad, and all the ugly. Some of them looked at us like we were crazy. The ones that accepted it saw the light, and all of a sudden, their brands took off. The goal here is that if you are going to put yourself out there and you create an aura of success, you're going to turn more people away than you're going to connect. And we really aren't taught that, and we don't know that. So before I go further, how many people here have a personal brand? 1, 2, 3. It's a trick question, people. Because everyone has a personal brand. If you did not raise your hand that you have a personal brand, it means that you are not taking control of the narrative. You are not participating in the story that comes out. Because you know what? Jeff Bezos famously said that your brand is what other people are talking about when you're not there. And I agree with that. And if you don't think you have a brand, you're not in that conversation. But at the end of the day, your brand precedes you. How many people Google or do some research on somebody before they meet them? Everyone should. If you have your hand down, you should think twice. Your brand precedes you, and that's why it's so important to understand. It's what people see on social media. It's what you're posting. It's how you're interacting. It's how you're creating content. It's when you're speaking. It's in the small conversations that you're having with people here, before, and after. A lot of people get confused. They think that their personal brand is their job title. That's not it. If that's all you think it is, you're missing a huge part of who you are. You are more than your job title. Now, I think a lot of leaders are still stuck in the fact, they'll be like, why would I support my employees having a personal brand? We have a corporate brand. Makes you feel warm and fuzzy when you see our logo. Well, those people are not forward thinking. Because right now what's happening in social, online, is that over time, businesses are losing their followers. There's not as much growth. You know why? Because people don't want to do business with businesses. We don't want to follow businesses. We want to follow people. So you know what? There's this whole thing called influencer marketing. Let's put a person in front of our brand. That makes sense. Let's humanize us. Yet the executives and the employees still hide behind the corporate brand. This is the old way of thinking, and it will and is becoming antiquated. The new way, 2020 and beyond, is to get your employees to be your brand ambassadors, your employees to be your enthusiasts, your employees to be the thought leaders, so that when they're at a random five-top table and they're meeting somebody for the first time, they're excited about their thought leadership. They're excited about what they're doing. They're not hiding the fact that they work at a job that's not supporting their professional development. Let's get some energy going again here. Ready? Boom, 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 boom. People ask me all the time on how to build a brand. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I was too fast, you're too slow. Ready? Let's warm up. Boom, 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 boom. People ask me all the time on how to build a brand. I tell them the good news that it's something that they have. It's the intersection of two very special things. It's what you want to be known for and what others think. When you document your story, okay, I stopped. It didn't work. I was working on raps all week. That's why it's imperative to take part in your narrative, to document your story so that other people learn from it. Facebook, Twittergram, are you LinkedIn? Are you snapping out a TikTok trying to fit in? You need to stop worrying about everybody else and focus on being your authentic self. How do you do that? First, you own your story. Then you start to share. Then you ditch the act. Then people care. Appearances are almost everything. But we want people to like us. And the challenge is if we just get people to like us, then they don't really know us. If you let somebody know who you are, they have the option of whether or not they'll like you. And if they like you, there's a good chance that they'll trust you. But if you only try to get people to like you, your brand, your company, and you don't show that you are human or you don't humanize your brand, then sure, they'll like you, but there's an arm's distance when it comes to trust. You can't download trust, and many people think you can. There's things that happen that are amazing, and there's things that happen that are really bad. And in the middle somewhere is your reality. That reality is yours and yours alone. And that reality is your brand. And your brand is who you are. So those people who don't identify with the brand, they're like, I don't have it, you already have it. It's right in front of you. You have to own your whole story. You can't forget about your past, because as soon as you do, you lose all the abilities to connect with somebody on that relatable level. And this is what we call ditching the act. To ditch the act and to reveal your whole self. You have to put yourself out there. And I know what you're thinking. It's going to be scary. And in fact, this is probably what you feel like. How many people here are scared of putting themselves out there online? I attribute every single thing I'm talking about as equal from an online to an offline perspective. How many people are scared of sharing their whole self offline? Liars. The idea here is that you have to overcome that fear and share, whether it's online or whether it's offline. You have to start to let people know who you really are. Otherwise, they have no ability to connect with you as a person. They won't know you. They might like you, but they won't trust you. When you find yourself in a moment of fear, it's an indication that you are on the right track. If something makes you nervous or you are scared of something, that's when you really need to push your level. So there's many people that are sitting back and fear is holding them back, but the one thing that they need to do is realize that that fear is an indication that they're on the right track. And that's why we wrote this book, Ditch the Act. It was 2 years since that party at Keith Ferrazzi's house, and we looked back at the clients and we realized what we were doing is that we were helping them expose themselves in this less shiny light, and they were getting all kinds of traction. We emailed Keith Ferrazzi after 2 years and said, Keith, we met at your house, we built a successful company. Can we come back to your house and spend the day there just by ourselves to sort of create and outline this book? He said, yeah. Not only did he do that, but he wrote the foreword in our book. And he's now become a friend. Why? It all started with his ability to share something that I would never expect him to share. It fast tracks the ability for you to create connections with people because they trust you by the fact that you're giving them that information. Now, here's some examples of ditching the act. Sharing your emotions, men in the room, sharing your emotions is not a bad thing. I continuously fight with this. Sharing what goes wrong is a good way to show that you're human. Sharing your whole self is an opportunity to let people to get to know you. Sharing your feelings, gentlemen, is an opportunity for you to get the same page or not have as many miscommunications. Sharing things that upset you is a form of ditching the act. And your faults, like spelling, like I am the worst at spelling and I own it. Okay? In the book, there are a bunch of worksheets. And it's not just a book saying you should be vulnerable. It's a book saying here's actually a step-by-step process. We have what's called an exposure resume. Everybody's familiar with a resume, all the good stuff. An exposure resume teases out everything that doesn't make the resume. The time you got fired, the time you got investigated, the time you got a DUI, the time you did all these things. Now, this is an internal document for you to understand all the things that have gone wrong because you probably have forgotten about them or you've buried them in the closet somewhere. Your expertise comes from your experience. And when you have these traumatic events or even slightly traumatic events, the lessons that you learn from them is more important than anything you can learn in a book. We learn by experience, yet we forget to share the experience. How many people here have a bio out there somewhere online? I'm guessing most of them is like, I'm a badass, and then this is how rad I am, and then this is my accolade, and this is how many millions I had. I would never put anything about my dog. How many people have a dog? You're losing the opportunity to connect with those people. Here's a quick side story. He was a VP at Cisco, and he has this crazy track record, an amazing guy, just badass, badass, badass. And we were doing an interview to tease out some of the stories he wasn't saying. And he said, as a kid, he wanted to be a paper boy. His dad was very pissed at him about that. We're like, why? He's like, well, because I was using that money to buy video games. And he continued to talk. And all Leonard and I heard was video games. And here's this guy at the top of his game, untouchable, very unrelatable to us. And we said, video games? You like video games? And he's like, yeah, man. And we just talked for like 10 minutes about video games. This is a VP of a very large company. And up until that moment, we didn't have the best connection. So the idea here is that the things that you're not sharing, there's an opportunity for people to start caring. Now remember this guy. This is the Ryan with no backstory. Well, that all can backfire very easily. And I didn't see any traction. And as soon as I started to share what was going wrong with my speaking business, that's when I started getting speaking business. When I share that I get nervous before I go up with a talk, I get a whole bunch of tweets to support me in what's happening. It makes me a real person. And I have brought all of this back into my life. If you read my About page on my website, I spill all the beans. You know everything about me. And so when I meet somebody who sees a piece of content or sees one of my talks, goes to find out about me, they read my About page, they feel like they actually know me. And when I meet them in person, they're like, we have a real connection. If you are denying your backstory, you're denying a huge part of how you're connected with people. How many people have at any point has been bullied in their life? Okay? See that? We connect. How many people made stupid decisions and had dumb ideas in high school? Right? How many people were intimidated by college to an experience where you thought it could have been the best moment ever and you end up crying on your skateboard home because life is miserable and all you want to do is go home, but you don't want to tell your mom you want to go home because you cried when you left and you didn't want to cry and then everything's chaos and you're like, you just stay in your room and drink. That happen to anybody? How many people started at a job and thought, this is it. I'm going to be making tons of money for a long, long time? How many people got their knees chopped off in 2008? I'm still recovering from that. See that? That's the reason you have to figure out how to own the story. But as a result of that terrible experience, I'm a different person. I know exactly who I am as a result of it, and I'm that much more confident, and that confidence comes across, and you can tap into that confidence instead of hiding behind or putting on an act. Now, here we are, flash forward 5 years, and I've got 4 TEDx talks. I've been featured in just about every major publication. I speak around the world, and I'm approached all the time. Why? Because I started to open up. And I guarantee I would have had none of this traction if I still stayed this little guy right here pretending like everything was okay. And if you think about it, people aren't as interested in your success story. Yet that's what we feel we have to put out there. Oh God, what am I going to put on my LinkedIn title? People need to know that I'm such a badass. I'm going to change it, research keywords. If this is what I am, and this is my success story, you don't relate to it. But you relate to how you see yourself in my story. People don't care about your story of success, they care about how they see themselves in your story. And when you start to share your story, people start to connect. Now, in the book, we talk about how you actually go about this. Okay, Ryan, I get it. I need to be more vulnerable, but what do I just like air all my dirty laundry? Absolutely not. That's probably the worst thing that you can do. Just like anything, we teach you how to baby step through it. How do you eat an elephant? Don't eat elephants, but how do you eat an elephant? If you ate it? Exactly, thank you, sir. How do you start to expose yourself, and how do you start to connect with people? How do you start to share your backstory that you've been hiding the whole time? Baby steps. You warm up your audience, you warm up your crowd. Level 1 is silly, stupid stuff that makes you human. It happens all the time. How many people have forgotten their hair gel to the gym? Okay, how many people go to the gym? No, I'm just kidding. I forgot my hair gel at the gym, and I tweeted it out. And I got all kinds of support, and I thought, I can be resourceful. And in those tweets, people suggested I should be creative with everything else I had in my bag. And I had this little weird serum that somebody sitting over here gave to me. Elijah, I can't even pronounce it, Elage. And so I'm like, I don't have hair gel, but because I shared that, somebody gave me a suggestion to get creative. And so I used the oil concoction that's a secret from her grandpa. I was like, I don't even know what to do with this stuff, put it in my hair. I've been using it ever since. This is Elijah right here. Yeah, this is hair gel, okay? That would have never happened if I didn't share it. I forgot my shoes the other day. Are you kidding me? I've been at the gym and I've had my shirt on backwards for an entire hour until I realize it. Are you kidding me? But this is what makes me human. This is what makes you laugh. This is where you see yourself in my story. I was speaking in Santa Barbara, and I was super excited. A 3-camera shoot, one of my biggest talks ever. I was driving up, and I felt a little bit of a bump on my forehead. I'm like, maybe I'm just nervous. And then I get up there in the hotel, I'm like, I'm going to sleep on this side of my head because I feel like something's happening here. And then at the event, a 3-day event, it happens at a half an hour before my show, this thing starts to crown. Biggest pimple I've ever seen in my life. And I was so confused, and I was like totally anxious, and I was nervous, and I was texting Leonard, what do I do? Do I pop it or not? And he's like, why are you asking me? This is a perfect opportunity to ditch the act. I'm like, oh God, I don't want to do this. He's like, you should do it. I was like, I don't know. So he actually texted me this so that I couldn't even come up with it. So he texted me this, copy and paste, tweeted it out. I tweet a lot. At this conference over 4 days, I probably tweeted around 150 times. This tweet outperformed all tweets, not only of mine, but of the entire conference, landing over 72,000 impressions and hundreds of comments. There was team pop it, team don't pop it, use concealer, get a freezer, do all this stuff. Like, it was crazy. I actually could not keep up with it. And I was like, oh my gosh, concealer was the best option. One of the speaker handles had concealer, put concealer on it. I was like, good. I walk out, I'm like, yeah. And I realized that the 40-foot by 20-foot screen behind me was just a potpourri of my face with a big pimple on the entire thing. You know how they have those softwares that like pop up all the most popular tweets? And it had about 40 of them, and every single one was me going like this. I was like, shit, I've been had. They know it. I was beet red, which is like a form of ginger that can be scary sometimes. But you know what? Everybody knew about it. Everybody has zits. And I came out like, woo! Not like that. I was so pumped up. I went from so anxious and so scared to being pumped up. People still talk to me about this. Here's another example. You have these conversations at work. You have these conversations here today. How many times are you asked, oh, Happy New Year. How are you doing? Oh, it's so good to see you. Great. How are you? And inside you're like, I'm tired. My kids are driving me crazy. I lost my hair gel. And I'm actually concerned about losing my job. I'm fine, thanks. Hi, how are you? Oh, it's so great. Life is so good. And the other person's like, yeah, it's pretty great, huh? You're like, yeah, it's good. Oh, yeah. You got any plans this weekend? Oh, yeah, tons of plans. That happens all the time. At work, you're like, all right, we're ready for another week. Let's do a little huddle. Great. How are you? How's your weekend? Good, good, great. How about you? Oh, it's good. Okay, yeah, great. Okay, good. Yeah, mine was amazing. Great. All right, let's go. Imagine a different world where somebody goes first. How are you? Good, great, I'm good. How about you? Are you okay? What's going on? You tell me? Okay, now we're having a huddle. How can we help this out? Let's do this. Let's figure this out. Somebody has to go first because it makes it really easy to go second. You look at this whole Me Too movement, which has been happening forever, pretty much, and it took a few brave women to say, I am going to go first, and you know what happened? Millions of people went second. Nobody wants to expose themselves. Nobody wants to say that they're tired. Nobody wants to say they're not feeling well. But as soon as you do, people will relate to you. So the next time that you have a conversation, somebody says, how are you doing? You're like, actually pretty shitty. I had a really rough night, didn't get much sleep. Oh, I'm so sorry. You should try this and this. And now they'll start to present options to you. Those are real conversations. Level 2 is about relationships with other people. Because all of us have had challenges in relationships with other people. It's human to have that. But when you start to share things that are stressors in your life or anxieties or even accidents that happen, people will start to relate. Now, what does this look like? Huntington Beach boat parade. My parents, we do the butterfly boat. The most annoying amounts of lights in no particular theme or anything. Every year for 36 years, it's been a family tradition. And of course, we play Bruce instead of Christmas music, right? An hour into the first night, my dad stops being DJ, and it's kind of weird. Then, all of a sudden, he's not even on the bridge. And we're concerned about him, but it's cool, we're cheering. Long story short, a 3-hour tour, we get home, he doesn't say anything, and I see him hobbling up the stairs, up the ramp. My mom's like, you need to go check on him. I went upstairs to find him hurling in pain. I thought he was dying. My sister comes in, my mom's there, Cynthia's there, my sister's praying. It's just like crazy. We're like, can we please take you to the hospital? Can we please get an ambulance? No, 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 no. I was just heart-wrenching. He finally allowed us to take him to the hospital. Thank God for UCI. They got the whole medics team there. He had emergency surgery that night. He was in the hospital for 3 days, and he came home. I was a mess for about a week. Now, who's the first person I told when I got into work? My boss. I shut the door. I said, I need to be real with you. I need to tell you what's going on. I need to get this out. There are so many times when we have things that happen in our life and we're afraid to share with our boss because it's a sign of weakness. You know what he did? He said, go home right now. Like, what can I do? I'm like, I don't need to go. He's like, anything I can do for you. He checks in with me regularly, like, how's your dad? That's part of the conversation. That would not happen if I was afraid to share that. And I might seem like I'm not doing my job or underperforming. And that happens all the time in work. If you're a manager and you're only sharing the good and you're not going first, you think your employees are going to say they're having a hard time with what they're doing? You think they're really going to share with you what didn't go right on the sales call if you're just trying to drill them in and just try to bring in sales? In corporate America, and especially in the startup world, if you don't have the honesty to share what's really going on, how can you build trust in the workplace? It's tragic to see it happen. Now, when I first met my girlfriend, it was at a really bad time in my life. And I was like, I need to be honest with you. I am broke. I've got student loans. My cars are being repossessed. My house is in foreclosure. I have no money. I have no guarantee that I'm going to make anything anytime soon. That's what you got. It's been 11 years, January, and we're getting married in September. And guys, it's hard for us to communicate our emotions and feelings, but I just got it all out front. Now, I didn't write the book at that point, and I didn't know what I was doing. That was the best thing that I could have done. And now, if I'm feeling upset or something goes wrong, I share that with her so she knows where I'm coming from, so she doesn't think that I'm mad at her for something that I didn't do. We all know how that works. And this is just a level 2. So once you start to feel comfortable about the silly little dumb stuff that happens every day that relates to people, if you want some good examples, you just search the hashtag first world problems. You see all kinds of level 1s. But they're fun, and you're like, oh God, I relate to that. Yeah, it's a first world problem, but I have that problem. Now, level 3 is about things that you're not proud of. It's about financial issues that you have, things that maybe are a little bit scarier to get out there. Meet Sally. Sally was a roadster. Now, me and my buddy went down to Laguna Beach, and we were partying until about 2 in the morning, and I was responsible because I'm like, let's sleep in the car. So we were sleeping in the car, and it was about 3:30 or 4, and I'm like, it is not comfortable to sleep in a sports car, bro. Let's just go home. He's like, okay. So I drive home. Totally get there safe. I'm like, this is great. Of course, we need Taco Bell. So Taco Bell, it was a long line, and what did we do? One of my favorite pastimes, you take that hard top, and you bring the hard top down. Woo-hoo-hoo! And you put the hard top back on. Woo-hoo-hoo! Then you take the hard top back off. Woo-hoo-hoo! And then you realize you have to order, and you order, and your top's coming up and down, and it's just crazy, and you're eating burritos, and you're so excited, and you forget where you are. You're like, my house is right there. Dude, check this out. Chiptronics. Boop, boop, boop. 60, 70 miles an hour on a left-hand turn. Boop, boop, boop. For a moment, I thought I could outrun him. But I didn't. And I got a DUI. And it was something that I kept secret for over 10 years. My parents didn't even know about it. In fact, I think that they found out about it through the book. But I wish I would have shared this experience with my close friends even well before. I thought I was a burden on everybody. I was miserable. Like, I thought all my mobility gone, like it was terrible. There was 10 years of my life I was just miserable because I wasn't able to share it. And as soon as I did, people were like, dude, that's not that big of a deal. I got one too. Or I have a friend that got one. You're like, oh. So there are things that you can share that connect you with people. If you've ever gotten a DUI, and don't raise your hand, feel you. Uber it, okay? You have no excuse. Now, here's another interesting story. As my house was being foreclosed and my cars were going and I had no money and I had student debt, I didn't even have enough money to get out of my hole. So I had to ask my parents if I could borrow $375 to file for bankruptcy. And it was a cheap one, so I had to do all the legwork. It was like the most minimal, like stop, chop, like bankruptcy shop that there was. And I filled out all the paperwork. The $375 for was him to review it, and he put it in the mail, and I put it in the mail. I was like, this is it. I'm going to get a new, fresh start. Well, 2 weeks later, I got the same package back. I was 32 cents short on my postage. 32 cents. My favorite hockey player growing up was Kelly Rudy, who I idolized, and his number was 32, and I'm like, thank you, Kelly. I don't know if that makes sense. But in my mind, right then, I took that piece of paper, and I ripped it to shreds. This was a thick paper. I was just like, ah, 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 ah. And then I felt bad because I littered all over the place. So I picked it up. Now, I was afraid to tell my story of almost not bankruptcy, because it wasn't bankruptcy, but it sort of was because I filed it, but it got returned. But that's one of those things that I now can share in a certain way that relates to other people who got their legs chopped off, who've considered filing for bankruptcy. It's an emotional journey to go through, and there's that connection. Yeah, I almost was broke. I've had plenty of times where I've been broke. So have you, but you just don't want to admit it. So the idea here now is to build up to the big stuff. The personal, the business, the emotional stuff, the stuff that you are so afraid of sharing because you will get fired for it maybe. I blurred out these stick figures to protect their identities. Now, there was a VP executive at one of the largest retail stores in the world. And his words, not mine, he was a pricky guy to know. He was the kind of manager, all business, no play, you knew nothing about his personal life, and he basically led with an iron fist. That is, until his 6-month-old got stage 3 neuroblasmia. He had a choice, to hide it or to share it and open up. And he couldn't even hide it because he was so emotional about it. It was the first time that he broke down in front of his team and shared with his team what was really going on, said, I'm going to be away from the office. And they're like, it's okay, go. While he was gone, the team outperformed any quarter than they had been under his rule of thumb. And from this point on, he leads as vulnerable as possible. He wrote about this whole process, and he shared it as a father going through this in a business world. His son is now 7, and everybody's fine. But he learned from that lesson the opportunity to be a more authentic leader. You heard the story of when the weird guy walked in with the summons. That's exactly what he looked like, by the way. This moment is something that I had no choice but to ditch the act. I couldn't deny it, it was there. But the way that I explained it showed that I actually was a great person to help entrepreneurs through the journey of starting a crazy business. And if I would have been like, yep, you're right, sorry, I'm fine, I'm gone, it wouldn't happen. And now I talk about this. This is in my bio. In fact, I was asked to be on a TV show called Break Through the Crowd, which is about crowdfunding, and Leonard and I were brought on as experts. The winner actually raised over $2 million. They were successful. The series didn't get past the first pilot, but as we were about to fly to New York, the producers gave me a call and said, sorry, Ryan, we can't have you on the show. This is after I already said I was going to be on the show. I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, yeah, we did some deeper diving. We found out your FTC thing. We just don't think that's right to have an advisor there that's been in some trouble in the past. And I went, I'm not hiding it. Go to my website. Look at my bio. It's right there front and center. In fact, I'm the person that you need to be here because I've been through this shit and I know what it's like and I can help them avoid it, or I can help them understand the mistakes that they might be making, the red flags that they might be seeing because they're working behind a Chinese wall. I said, I am not hiding from this. You can't hold this against me. I've already got it out there. I was on the show. Yeah, thank you. If you get in front of the stuff that's gone wrong, nobody can hold it against you. Now, level 5. This is what not to share. Now, you can put an extreme in front of all of these, and maybe it makes a little bit more sense. If you share about your ego, and you got a humble brag in front of your rented Ferrari, and you're like, yep, that's not going to make you connect with people. If you are in front of a private jet plane that you get as a selfie as you're walking by, and it's not your plane, that's not going to work. If you are just talking about yourself, people will be turned off. Now, politics, you have to understand that if you are making extreme political conversations, you're joining these conversations, it can get very divisive very quickly. Same thing for religion. Now, if you want to build a relatable brand, just know the dangers of talking about extreme politics and about extreme religion. And then that last one, sex. Stupidest thing in the world to send a picture of your private parts. Don't ever do it. And to scar you, I'm going to show you an example. I'm just kidding. So there you have it. You have 4 levels of exposure to start to categorize the things that you tease out in your exposure resume to get in front of all the stuff and find more ways to connect with people. Because if you can share with them that you're a human, that you also have challenges with different people and different situations, and that you're an emotional being, and that you have anxiety, and you have stress, and you've been financially crushed before, and all these things, then people get to know you. And if people know you, they have a chance of whether or not they want to like you. And if they like you, they just might trust you. And if you want to build a strong personal brand, people have to trust you. If you want to build a company that people resonate with, that makes them feel good, what you have to do is you have to build trust. Not just liking, but trust, and that means you have to let them know you. Here's a funny example. Ryan, I've been following you on Twitter for a while, and I'm truly inspired by your stick figures and the content. I feel like I know you, and I feel like we're friends in a way. I told you I'm getting married in September, right? I've built a relationship with this person over Twitter. If you look at her handle, it has to do with weddings. Who do you think the first person is that I reached out to in my search for a wedding planner? Her. Now, she doesn't live in California, but she's talking about flying in. Because that's the type of relationship that I've built by just being vulnerable. And if you are an entrepreneur, if you're a solopreneur, if you're a mediumpreneur, if you're a largepreneur, whatever it is, if you're not putting yourself out there, you're not going to have these types of real, tangible connections. The good news is you don't have to be anybody but yourself. Now, that might stress you out if you're not really sure or you're still in this journey. You're like, I'm not sure what's next. But the reality is that you don't have to be like anybody else. And as soon as you start to look and sound like everyone else, then you look and sound like everyone else. And then nobody cares about you, and you just blend in. Your success is half of the story. And when you start to realize that, life is a lot less stressful. As a speaker who has flaws, I'm not really worried about sweating through my shirt. I'm not really worried about if every rap goes right, although it pisses me off and I'm going to practice more. But the idea is that I live a less stressful and a less anxious life. Because ditching the act isn't something that you do, it's a lifestyle. When life happens and it's a silly moment, I think to myself, is this a level 1 or a level 2? Should I share this? If I do, I get all this realm of support that comes back with me. And I think that sometimes people are different around their friends, different around their boss, different around their wife, different around people that they don't know, and different around people in a different situation. That's like 5 personalities, and people get hospitalized for less than that. If you start to be known as the same person, the person with all this experience, you put yourself in front of the company, you don't have to hide behind it. Do you know how many entrepreneurs fail and they put themselves behind the company and they're like, I'm the guy that does this. Here's my company. Company fails. Here's what I'm doing now. Company fails. Here's my new venture. Company fails. If you step in front, you're like, my name's Ryan Foland. That's what I got going on. I'm Ryan. Okay? That failed. I don't really, I'm still here. Next, I'm Ryan, and here's my new venture. It's right back there. But go to my personal website. When you start to put yourself in front of the companies and ventures that you do, you don't have to be known as a mortgage guy. Maybe you're the sales guy. So you can use all of these failures to put in front and actually create a whole person. Whatever way you go about building your brand, building your company is totally up to you. But the one thing that I want to share with you is that it's okay to be human. And if you think about that, that's what the book is. Take your book and look. What is the 2 words on the back of the book? Somebody read it loud and proud, and I'll give you a book. Be human. That's it. That's the whole book in a nutshell. I'm giving you permission to be human more often. Now, I don't even need your rap clap because I'm just going to wrap this. I'm going to make this happen. Because here is the deal. Let me give it to you real. The key to connection is to learn to reveal because you are not perfect and neither am I. And that is the exact reason we see eye to eye because everybody's different, but we are all the same. To be perfectly imperfect is how you win the game. And if you only showcase good and do not share the bad, you will miss connections that you never knew you had. And when you learn to ditch the act and learn to be yourself, you open up a window to have people help you out. Ladies and gentlemen, own your whole story. Share your whole story, and when you ditch the act, that's when people will actually start to care. Thank you.